So anyway, I'm Ville formerly from PlayHaven, and in last December we actually merged with Kontagent, the analytics company, and our aim is to provide actionable analytics. So today I'm going to talk a bit about big data, what actionable data means, and what the industry should be looking forward in the future in the realm of analytics. So 2014, we've pretty much like labeled it as the year that big data goes actionable. Of course, like big data is not a new concept, and in our industry, we make interactive products, so they have been driven by data analysis. We have been using data for whether we're looking for input on product development, identifying our target markets, trying to understand our audiences better. Now, thanks to development in analytics tools and just data analysis expertise in general, we're finally getting to the point when we can bridge the gap from just looking at the raw data and actually seeing the results in whatever we're doing. So what is the trend here? This trend is pretty much dictated by some of the biggest influencers from the industry. So if we look at, like, for example, what Eric Schmidt from Google stated in his predictions for 2014 at the end of last year, the biggest disruptor that we're sure about is the arrival of big data and machine intelligence everywhere. So the ability for businesses to find people, to talk specifically to them, to judge them, to rank what they're doing, to decide what to do with your products changes every business globally. And of course, like in gaming, online services, applications, this is pretty much what we live and breathe already. We make our products, we have the luxury of soft launching them, looking at what our audience is doing, reacting accordingly, defining, redefining, reiterating on our products. But there's complete outliers, of course, that come to the market and which seemingly succeed based on craft, just design alone. But if we're looking at building a robust business to last for years and years, to serve millions of users in a service, not just like an individual product, individual game. When we're looking at what Supercell, King, Kabam, companies like Wargaming, Ubisoft are doing in this space, their business is based on analyzing their data, pretty much. So what is big data? If we look at the simple Wikipedia definition, the big data is the term for a collection of data sets so large and complex that it becomes difficult to process using on-hand database management tools or traditional data processing applications. So it's large and it's complicated. And because it's so large, the challenges traditionally, they include the caption, curation, storage, search, sharing, transfer, analysis, and visualization of data. So what we must solve when we're building any kind of analytics system is that we're first of all capturing the data that is critical to our business. So it's just not just any data. We need to look at the storage. Storage, like if you think of today's cloud solutions, it doesn't seem to be an issue. But when you're capturing multiple data points and hundreds of data points for millions of users, you're accumulating a huge volume of stored data. And the bigger the data set becomes, you need more and more sophisticated tools to actually query specific information within the data. Sharing and transferring of the actual data itself isn't the issue. It's the information that we derive from the data, and how do we transfer and share that across our organization. And that is where then analysis and visualization becomes into play, which is crucial in communicating data. So if I look at like just a simple example, if you asked me like, hey, do you know anybody who's good in mobile marketing? And I look at my LinkedIn, I have X amount of LinkedIn connections. That doesn't really tell me like who's exactly who's in which domain, unless I know. But if I then start visualizing and analyzing my network, I can tell that, oh, here are the people who are in mobile marketing, here are the people who are in gaming, here are the people who are in a completely different industry, and so forth. And this is like a relatively simple visualization on a limited data set on personal information and connections. But where does all our gaming data come from, and why games especially create big data today? So if we look at just performance telemetry of our game, here example, like we have a simple set of events, a simple funnel analysis of level completion in the game. We can have like half a dozen data points there, but if we go into more granularity, if we analyze what are the users actually doing in those levels, the items, the goals, the interactions in each level, and then we multiply these data points by X amount of X million of users, that's a huge set of data that we're gathering already. And then this really goes to show like how it's important to define what are the crucial KPIs, both in your game performance analysis and then further on your actual financial performance. Because if we're looking at revenue, retention, monetization of the game, this becomes an order of magnitude more data. We can be looking at, for example, the player behavior based on money spent on IAP, the geographic location of the players, device language, first session date, last session date, session length, so basically like the user cohorts in your game, total number of sessions, time spent, OS version, game version, hardware, data connection type, etc., etc. So we can start analyzing like how are people behaving on different devices, how is spending dependent on whether people are playing on tablets connected to Wi-Fi or whether they're like paying on the road on a mobile phone. So again, multiply your data by yet another number. And that was only the game. You probably have analytics, advertising networks, different marketing tools, different CRM tools. There's actually more than 1,000 digital marketing technology products to choose from on the market. And this super graphic comes from the chiefmarketech.com blog, where he listed like more than 950 marketing technology products in this landscape this January. And obviously, not all of these, the majority of these don't pertain only to mobile games. But for any mobile game, when you start looking at your analytics, at your different APIs, at the different interfaces you plugging in the different SDKs, again, you're generating more and more data. So with all of this data, it becomes pretty obvious that it's quite a challenge to extract what's really, really relevant for your business and to crystallize that for decision making. And I like, I'm a simple guy. I like simple, understandable analogies. So I like to think of this as, like these early medieval cartographers. They sort of took the liberty of looking at the unknown and painted in like monsters and stuff. These were the uncharted treacherous waters, and it's actually not that different from business, because what you don't know will kill you. Assumption is the mother of all failures. And basically, again, like I said before, we're in the space where we can test things, we can iterate them. We can soft launch games and applications on different markets, on different limited geographical regions, for example, and get the information, analyze the data, and iterate on that. So if you have the tools, if you have the plan, you have your KPIs, you have everything identified and sorted out, what is then the real challenge? So for the big data, you solve the challenge of capturing the data and storing it and searching it, analyzing it, visualizing it. But how do you take it into action? What do you do? Do you look at multiple dashboards? Do you generate reports, distribute them across your organization? And how do you really connect all this telemetry, all these metrics, all this analytical data into decision making and into actual action that changes your product, changes your end user's experience? So to enable really actionable data, you need those clearly defined strategic KPIs just to manage the whole data overload. And you need to instrument your analytics carefully so we always have reliable, robust, real-time data available. Complete data or sampling the entire data set. If you decide to sample data, you might have like a more sort of streamlined operation, like a bit more lightweight data set. But you will also only get like a broadcast overview of what your users are actually doing with your product. So to really get into analyzing the niches, and as we know, for example, in free-to-play game, the customers who spend money are a small percentage of your total audience. The customers who spend a lot of money are a tiny percentage of that percentage. So it really is a good idea to, at some point at least, to look at the complete data and not just sample it randomly. And all of this data, of course, has to be transparent and available across your organization. So you're doing a big mistake if you're siloing your data on a need-to-know basis on certain experts in your organization and not letting your product management, your marketing, everybody to get access to it. And of course, the key issue in making it actionable is that the data has to be connected to the necessary processes and tools needed to find people, to talk specifically to them, to judge them, to rank what they're doing, to decide what to do with your products, right? So, in this essential data toolkit, you're looking at the product telemetry, product development to help optimize your product, your service, your application, your game, but also user acquisition, where are the users coming from, attribution, how much are the users coming from different sources, how much are they spending, what the traffic is worth, how do you optimize your user acquisition operations. Engagement, how much time are your users spending, what kind of experience are you providing with them, are you giving like special offers and special promotions to different audience segments so that they're to optimize their time spent in your game. And retention and re-engagement, retargeting, how do you get people to come back to your game after they leave the application, push notifications, email marketing, similar campaigns. And of course, monetization. How is your virtual good promotions, in-app purchases, how are they performing? How is advertising performing? How do you adjust those? Usually, for each of these, you need some kind of interface. Nowadays, you can, of course, you can lump many things in together. But again, how do you bridge this gap from doing the analysis? For example, here, you do the simple funnel analysis. And let's say you're developing your game, you're analyzing your player behavior, you're trying to minimize the drop-off as your players proceed in your game. So you find the places where people are having difficulty, whether it's too easy and they get bored, whether it's too hard and majority of players can't get forward. Just to cross-reference the analytics and your product development, making the most entertaining possible game. So this is easy to iterate when you launch the game. But what about after that? For every user cohort that comes in, for your different needs of your existing audience gets distracted by other games, and their experience of your games will also change. Will you go back to the drawing board and change the entire game and get the users back? Or will you create a dynamic system where you can then modify the game experience according to your user's life cycle? So when the people who downloaded your game and started playing the game, they're probably not going to play it, even if they love it, they enjoy it, they're going to play it for a year. 3 months from when they downloaded it, they're not playing it in the same way. Rather, their session lengths, their activity in general is maybe lower, maybe higher, but they need incentives. They need different rewards, they need different incentives, different content to keep carrying on playing. So how do you get from the analysis to determine what your players need and then actually turn it into action to have it happen in the game, provide it for your players? And this is valuable because you're saving effort in submitting new game builds, in actually creating content, touching your precious code, when you can, for example, you see that there's just a particular user cohort who doesn't get your game, and you can provide them with simple instructions or advice to actually proceed in your game. And this is just an example. Lazy product design should never be like just something that you then later fix with any kind of tools that you add on. So definitely you need to be thinking about the best possible user experience for each audience segment. So all of this data, turning data into action, it's an investment. In addition to your product, your creativity and everything you create, data is a major it's a source of information, but it's also a great asset for you. Now, managing that data, when the data becomes huge, it's a big investment. Building an analytics platform, it can take millions of dollars, it can take dozens of man-years, and it can take from 18 months upwards easily. As we're seeing, with a lot of companies with even a lot of resources being put into this. And you have to really look at this as another data problem. Look at your key performance indicators and look at like where the core of your business is. Is building an analytics tool what you're doing as a company, or are you making games, applications, and services? Is there really like a return on investment in building a pipeline or the plumbing, or would you rather be building the great experiences for your players instead? At PlayHaven, we always said, don't make technology, make games. And this is why a lot of us use Unity, we use Marmalade, we use different engines and development frameworks, so we can focus on the creative process and of designing, developing games. And we think that the backend process is exactly the same. There exists a number of tools that you can use and choose from and build your own solution rather than building everything from scratch. Okay, but why are then actionable analytics the key to the winning? Because they bring so much efficiency. You get more educated decision-making process from your comprehensive data that's available at the moment of action. Your use of analytics and reports becomes more effective, again, because they're connected into the action process, and there's like no spreadsheets and multiple dashboards to cross-reference from when you have a unified solution. And content creation becomes more economical again, because you're taking action directly based on knowledge. You're just not resorting to experimenting and trying different things, but you're being successful at the first step. And of course, what's the ultimate win? User experience becomes more personal, more entertaining, more appealing, more engaging to the user. So why are we talking about this today, and why does this matter in 2014? Is 2015, or more broadly the future? And future, when we're looking at big data, we're looking at big data analysis, big data modeling, data mining. The future is still incredibly hard to predict. Here's, for example, this is a postcard from French artist Jean-Marc Coté from the end of the 19th century, and he predicted that in the year 2000, schools will look like this, where the professor is like pumping big data into this machine and then just beaming it into these dudes' heads. And in a way, you could argue that this is like the right paradigm, but the wrong execution that he envisioned. But still, like market analysis, market research is increasingly difficult. It has been so for a long time, and it's becoming even more difficult. And as a good example, Universal McCann created this global media study in 2007. iPhone was coming on the market, had just came on the market, and they were trying to research like what kind of footprint will the iPhone have like in the next couple of years. And they, from their sample of 10,000 people, they concluded that there is no real need for a convergent product in the US, Germany, or Japan. But some of the logic behind this was that they interviewed consumers who had already invested in a iPhone cell phone, a digital camera, and an MP3 player. So why on earth would they need like another expensive devices that combines these in a mediocre way, right? So they were wrong, because we're talking about the lifestyle product and we're talking about desire, and this guy bought it, and it's not about what I actually want today, and it's really incredibly hard for me to determine what I desire in 6 months' time, in 18 months' time. So incremental change is easy to predict. Long-term change, very, very difficult to predict. But luckily for us, we don't have to tackle with the problem of estimating like the long-term change and planning now for what we're going to publish within a year. We can create stuff in a fast development cycle. We can launch it, we can measure it, and when we finally are happy with what we got, when it matches our business needs, then we can also keep measuring our audience, keep developing our product, and not like iterating for 18 months from now. So basically, what we want to do is, now that we're enabling action, the next logical step is to make the action redundant. So 2015 is the year big data becomes autonomous. Or at least that's my prediction. So basically, we enable action, and by the way of predictive analytics, data mining, data modeling, we make a lot of that action automated. But that's next year. So I hope that next year I can be on this same stage and tell you about the first success stories of people who have eliminated action entirely, who are running the world's most sophisticated analytics and are actually running their products, product development, their marketing automated based on data. This is my dream. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can you just repeat your final thought? Because your last sentence, what your dream was, I didn't get it. Thank you.
Your dream.
What's my dream? So my dream is that now that we enable action, by way of analyzing data, by way of modeling based on historical data and current behavior of users, we get to finally automate a lot of the marketing actions that get pushed to them. So we're making a lot of that like hands-on, you know, tuning and tweaking. We're making a lot of that redundant and automating the process. Yes.
Hi, you talked a lot about actionable analytics. Can you talk a little bit more about how to action them? I mean, you know, you can have a lot of game variables that are controlled server side that you change. Is that kind of
that's pretty much it. But then, like the challenge is that like who are you using? What kind of analytics solution you're using? How do you channel the data into like where the actual action happens, so that you don't have to go here and look at the report and go here and look at another report that how this product decision affected performance, and then you cross-reference how it affected marketing, how it affected monetization performance, and then you go wherever you change that, right?
Right. So would you say, so is that what you guys are working towards with the merger? Is a product where you can get this data, you can figure out, okay, I want these cohorts, I want this cohort to have this experience. I go into a dashboard, I change that in a dashboard, and the game changes for that.
Exactly.
Cohort. Okay, but that doesn't exist today.
Some of it exists today.
Some of it exists, yeah. Okay, thank you.
One more? We've got time?
One more, yeah.
Do we have time? Okay.
With so many data tracking apps and services, you get sometimes overwhelmed and you don't know what to start and what to measure. What is like one step you could take into that space of starting to measure data? Because I get a feeling like I have to track everything now, or all these things. Like, how do I start?
I think there's a lot of analytics companies that you can turn to just for like consultation. Who will help you on the way, and then it's entirely up to you. Like what kind of depth of data, like how deep do you want to go, how complicated service do you need, and how robust. And I think that like you can easily like seek consultation. There's not like no way, no like sort of magic bullet like start from here, but you know everything is for each product, each service. It's a pretty individual process.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions? Thank you very much. Oh, one more. Okay, we're done. Are we? Come. Thank you.